I'm scared. I don't want to do this again. That was really traumatizing. Like, every time we go out to eat, I'm like so grateful just to be able to share a meal with someone. I ate alone for so long by myself. I learned my lesson. Like, I get it. I need to be, like, in touch with my body, and I'm trying to, but I don't know, but I'm running out of tools.
I screenshotted a text exchange between us. She asked me a question, and if you look at the time, let's say it was, 3:01, and then she texts right after that, 3:02. Why aren't you answering me? 1 minute later.
I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts that are not like within it, but like thoughts about this dynamic?
I will say that I hold on to a feeling. Something he did made me feel a certain way.
What's the feeling that keeps coming up?
Insecure.
Insecure.
Absolutely. Because if you don't pay
what
me...
you keep going back to that I think is the feeling is he doesn't care.
He doesn't.
Well,
I'm sorry.
let's not equate the feeling with truth. The feeling that you keep going back to ultimately is he doesn't care.
Correct.
Right? So that kind of colors everything. He's
Yep.
busy equals he doesn't care. He doesn't go to the gym equals he doesn't care. Right? There's a deep-seated he doesn't care. Now, I want to hear more. We just touched a little bit on your history. But for sure, what you've described is a lot of no one cared. Right? And a lot of loneliness and a lot of doing it on your own. Right? Oh, you're taking a deep breath. I'm sorry, I'm going right in there.
What's the matter? What's the matter?
Interesting. Very interesting. Do I have raccoon eyes? No?
No.
Okay. I think from a very early age, that was pretty much the narrative. I left my grandmother's house when I was 15, and I was free. I was free.
Free
But-
but alone.
Free but alone. Free but alone. And then, as a young kid, you don't know what you're doing, right? So you're gonna go back to what feels safe. And so I kept going back to my grandmother. And, you don't think people will do things until you see it. Like, I feel like
Are you thinking of something in particular when you're saying that?
my grandmother and my father's people didn't like my mother. And the cops were looking for my mother. I knew where my mother was. I had come in and they were in the back, my grandmother and my aunt, and they were plotting because the detectives were coming looking for my mother at my grandmother's house. And they were gonna say that I told where my mother was and the cops took my mother. My mother went to jail thinking that I told on her. And I heard them say that. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
That was a major double betrayal.
Yeah. Yeah. But, shame on me because I gave the benefit of the doubt and I should have known better. And I think...
Can I just pause for a second? How are you feeling listening
That
to this?
is messed up, man. That's a world of hurt.
A world of hurt.
Yeah.
A world of hurt.
Yeah.
But to bring it specifically into this dynamic that the two of you are here with, the shadow of that kind of, you can find it sketched into your relationship right? Because you go towards, with Deshaun, you go towards what comes up for you repeatedly, what pops up like a hologram is this feeling of aloneness, of nobody cares.
It's interesting.
It's frustrating for me, though.
Because you're dealing with history, you're not only
Yeah.
dealing with here and now.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of loneliness that you're describing, I mean, you can't make it all better.
It was Mother's Day. So I had got her a gift, and I wanted to surprise her. And I know she's always wanted a Boy Mom t-shirt. So I asked her about the shirt, and she was like, I said, do you like it? And she was like, no. She's like, I don't like V-necks, and it's not a good material. And that got me so upset. So I was just like, you know what? Throw the shit out, and that's it.
My issue with the shirt is just the way that it was going to look on me, the way that I'm feeling about my body right now. It had nothing to do.
So why'd you say that? Oh
I,
my God, the baby again.
Yeah, the baby again. I had said I didn't like the material because it's embarrassing. Like, I don't want to be like, I don't like the shirt because it's going to make me look fat.
Oh, so rather just hurt my feelings.
No, I wasn't. It
Well,
wasn't.
Tashira, but there is a way. I think there's something about that you sometimes don't really go all the way to consider the impact of what you say.
I agree with that.
You're kind of reckless in the way you speak.
I know. No, I totally agree with that. And I realized that when he came back into the room and, you know, he started off with, this is really hard for me, you know, but I'm going to say it, you know, that really hurt my feelings. And he was like puffing and puffing through it. I don't know. Maybe I'm harsh because I try to push people away. Like I just, you know, I really don't have an excuse for it. I don't have.
You don't need an excuse for it, but it's something you might want to take a good look at.
Work on. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Good morning.
Sorry. It's okay, baby. Yeah, venga.
He's like, I didn't wake up for therapy.
I know, right? Baby, come.
After like the heated part about it, I said, what I'm going to tell you is super not easy for me. It is like, it's making me cringe inside. And it kind of took me a little while to actually spit the words out because I don't know why it's so hard for me. But I just told her like, and I kind of like mumbled it because it was so hard for me to say. I'm just like, it hurt my feelings about what you said or about your response.
Yeah. Great. It hurt
and-
my feelings. That's all.
Yeah, that was super hard
Yes,
to say.
it's hard to say. Practice it. It's the truth. Everything else is nonsense.
No, I know, but and I guess at that very moment is when I realized how hard it is to get in that vulnerability.
Yeah. Exposing the truth.
Yeah, but exposing myself.
So
I
good.
guess.
Great, Drew. Great.
Yeah, I don't want to feel like I guess like the little bitch who's like, oh, you hurt my feelings.
The little bitch.
You gotta stop. He's very much like that. He's just like that's why I tell him, like, I don't understand why he thinks that I'm tough, but he's like tough sometimes. Like
Right.
it's hard for him to express that. And then after he said that, the conversation totally mellowed out.
Of course.
We were able to, I apologized to him and I put the shirt on and I took a picture and I actually liked the shirt on me. So.
You see all this? You see this shit?
We still have not been intimate yet.
Yeah. We talked about that, right? And I said, you know what, there's too many people in our house. Just because like her mother lives with us, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to have her brother's family like take the kids overnight. And I was like, and I'm gonna tell your mom, go to
the
your
casino.
sister, to the casino, sleep over her house. So that's just us.
Nice.
And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. But we have that liberty that if we want to be free in the house, we're free in the house.
Nice.
So
So each of you needs certain things in order to even enter
That space.
an erotic state of mind.
yes, yeah, it has to be a controlled environment because it's just like a lot of my control issues because they're control. Like I like the control because I didn't have the control growing up. Like I grew up in chaos, so I need to control ABC. You know, like it has to be like this. You know, like I had that insecurity, like, oh, any day now, like, are we still gonna be living here? Or are we not gonna be living here? Are we gonna have enough for food? Or are we not gonna have enough for food? Like, there was one time, like, we got evicted from the apartment.
What was the eviction about? What happened there?
I think my mom wasn't paying rent. I don't even know. Like, it just got to a point where we're like, oh, we're getting evicted again.
But what was going on with her?
She just didn't pay. She didn't pay rent. I don't know what she used the money for.
So she just consistently doesn't show up as a mother, as a caretaker.
Yeah. I feel like she always has like these empty words, right? Like she'll say, when I was pregnant, she's like, oh, when you're gonna give birth, I'm gonna come, because she was in Dominican Republic. I'm gonna come and be here for the birth. I said, this is my due date. If she comes, she comes. She didn't come, right? Oh, when you're gonna when you guys have a date for the baptism, right? Let me know. And I said, okay, here's the date. Oh, I'm gonna make it. She didn't come. So.
This is very upsetting stuff that you're describing.
It is, and I know, like, as I talk about it, I feel the anger, I feel the
The
resentment,
anger and the long-standing
Yeah.
kind of impasse and grudge that you've been living with.
yeah,
That's an engine you need to connect to
yeah.
rather than shutting it down. Sounds like you have pretty good reasons to be angry.
I know.
So all that affects us.
Yeah.
We should think about how.
Okay.
Because sin, when you act like Yaya's mother, by not treating her well, she shuts down.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like you're kind of tired of that dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
I'm struggling a bit. I've had really bad IBS the past couple of weeks. And I can't even get through my meals without running to the bathroom. This month I match for residency, so maybe it's like underlying anxiety about that. And also, I mean, there's a lot of, I'm still kind of confused about what's going on here. Do you want to elaborate more on that? Since she's free?
Sure. Well, today she was feeling a little down. I think she expected that I was going to hang out with her, and so I think she needed, like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I want my partner to want me, but I don't want to feel like they need me. And one thing I don't like is what I call sexpectation. Like, just because you're my partner, now I have access to your body. And our sex life was already, like, struggling, and so now I'm having sex with somebody else, and then it felt like, okay, well, you're having sex with them, so you need to be having sex with me. And then I'm like, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it. And sometimes I felt like you would never hear me. And so then now we're having, well, what is it? Okay, well, is it this? Is it that? And then, well, I don't know, maybe we're incompatible. You're saying we're sexually incompatible. And then now it's like this big thing that's just grown and grown and grown and grown.
I want to take a pause on the question that the two of you are struggling with and ask a little bit about you're not feeling well.
Sure. Okay, physically, I don't know what's going on. I'm getting very frustrated. I've had 4 to 5 years of like almost debilitating GI issues. Like I could only eat 8 ingredients for like a year and a half.
What were the 8 ingredients?
It was like white rice, plain chicken, cornflakes. Everything else made me really sick. And then
By the way, how were you as a kid in terms of your gut sensitivity?
I was fine, but I always had a stomach ache anytime, well, retrospectively, anytime I was anxious.
What was happening at home?
So we were living in the West Bank for 5 years, and the uprising started in 2000. So they started bombing our cities, and like there were a couple of times like bombs fell near our house, and like everything's flying off the walls. And a bomb fell on my sibling's school, but it didn't detonate. And after that, my parents were like, "We have to leave. It's not worth our children's lives." And so we left like very quickly, barely said bye to anybody, and then we came back here. And then 9/11 happened, and all my classmates were calling me a terrorist, making jokes about me bringing bombs to school. They would ask me if I was related to Osama bin Laden, and already I was struggling to make friends.
One long trauma.
Yeah. And then my parents, it was just really tense, and we had strict rules. Yeah. Especially me and my sister. The women were treated very differently than the men, and my dad was like, the only time you will ever not do what I say is if another man tells you what to do. And I was like, no, thank you.
I'm gay.
No, thanks. Anyways, moral of the story is, sorry.
I just want to note, so you're obviously talking about like extreme trauma, and your voice is kind of flying over it.
I don't want to feel what it would feel like to actually slow down, and I feel like that's probably why. Retrospectively, I think I was like very, very depressed. Like I couldn't even get up for school. I wasn't doing anything that brought me joy anymore. And I was only 9. And then that got worse because I feel like for immigrants, the culture is frozen in time. We couldn't even say the word gay. I didn't even know I was gay. But you could... If you saw pictures of me when I was little, I was like, really adorable. Gay. And when we moved here, my parents were like, we're gonna paint your room pink. And I'm like wearing a sideways hat and like boys' clothes. I was like, why? I feel like it was like an attempt at conversion therapy, but I'm still gay.
She's a girl, she's gay. She's like boys, you like boys.
I'm still gay, just like pink now. Yeah. Then my older brother was outed, and that was a disaster. And I was like, I can't say anything. So I stopped talking about my feelings, and then I didn't cry for like maybe 8 years. I like wouldn't show any emotion. So I think a lot of the homophobia in the household was when a lot of my stomach aches were starting to begin. But and my IBS like resolved almost completely right when I met Nadine. But now it's coming back, and I'm scared. I don't want to do this again. That was really traumatizing. Like every time we go out to eat, I'm like so grateful just to be able to share a meal with someone. I ate alone for so long by myself. I learned my lesson. Like I get it. I need to be like in touch with my body, and I'm trying to, but I don't know. But I'm running out of tools.
It's okay. It sounds to me that the way you've contained all of these traumatic experiences and your feelings about all these things you're describing is by a mix of dissociating and thinking really hard. You're using
I'm trying
your
to
intellect.
understand. I
Right,
don't know how to
but
just
understanding the mind as working as a container.
Yeah.
The intellectual mind is working as a container, but it puts a lot of the work of metabolizing on your gut,
Yeah.
which can't keep up. There's just too much.
And I can feel it. I can't even finish my meals anytime we talk about things that are stressful. And I feel like in this relationship, I've been kind of given an ultimatum of either doing polyamory or just breaking up. And so I'm very confused. I don't know how to move forward anymore.
I've processed so much in therapy, and I work really hard to work on myself. And I want to share what I feel through these sessions with her in the intimacy of just me and her. And Natasha doesn't tend to be too open to that kind of conversation.
What can you add?
I think that coming here, it allows me to open up, right? And
Because of some sense of safety.
Correct. And at home, I get really stuck back into that routine where I'm just sort of like avoiding the conversations or...
But what are you avoiding?
Just tension, arguing,
conflict.
Yes. Conflict is like somewhere where I just have like a very, like, it's not flight or fright or what is it called?
Fight or fight.
or fight. There we go. I'm a freeze.
So where is this from? This fear of things becoming scary and...
Life. My very tumultuous past.
Tell me.
At a very young age, I got in a relationship with my daughter's father, and that was toxic as fuck. There was a lot of...
Was it violent?
A little bit, yes. Then after that relationship dissolved, I was sort of in like survival mode, without a college education, just trying to make money, trying to forge a future for myself and like keep everybody alive and safe. And like I've had so much conflict in those years that now that I'm in sort of like a good space, any conflict I treat like catastrophic conflict.
But it sounds like actually you're scared a lot of the time.
I'm totally scared.
But what are you scared of in a conversation?
Well, I
Every
think
conversation maybe carries the threat of a breakup.
yes, in my mind, yes. You know, we're engaged, and one day I really hope we do get married, but we really talk about marriage as a big if, not a when. I want us to stay together, and I want this to be strong. And I know he does too. And so it's like scared of like, what is the other option? Like besides us making this work, what is the other option? For me, that's terrifying.
I think one of his highest of his many skills is his writing. And so I'm like, we should write a book together about trauma in a relationship.
Oh.
And he got really excited and like he whipped out a notebook and he's like, all right, let's do like from which perspective, blah, blah, blah. And then it turned and I got really upset. His ADHD came up and I was like, I don't think that should be a whole like section. I think that's, and he's like, well, this is like authentic to me. And I was like, and I think you should be authentic to you, but it shouldn't have its own section because this should be like specifically centered around trauma. But then all of a sudden, like, he wasn't interested anymore. And I'm like, because I disagreed with this one part, you know, like probably like 30 minutes pass or an hour passes. And then he said, you're still mad? And I was just like, that's it. I was just like, I want to burn the whole world to the ground.
Yeah. He wasn't in the most control of his emotions, and they were just kind of, you know, whatever he was saying, he was just saying it. There was no filter.
Well, I dissociated.
What
During the conversation.
During that conversation, you dissociated?
Yeah.
Where did you go? And what were you saying?
I don't know, but...
There was a part of the night that, like, I was just scared.
What happened?
I hear him coming down the stairs, so I run to the bathroom. And he's, like, talking at me while I'm sitting. Saying, like, I will never get it. Like, I'm selfish. This is why your sister doesn't tell you stuff. This is why, like, your relationship with your mom is so messed up. Like, the meanest things. Because at this point, I'm in the corner. I'm sitting in the bathroom cowering. And I'm like, I just want to be here. Just walk away, please. So he must have my glasses somewhere and broke my glasses and then leaves. And I'm like, how much more understanding am I supposed to be? When does this cross the line of like, you're being a survivor and this being a traumatic episode and this just being abusive?
Can I ask you, Alexis, what do you remember of all of this?
I remember like when we were sitting on the table, and I feel like I remember hail or like rain or something.
But, for example, the scene in the bathroom? Nothing? Do you know who you're switching into?
I just say like my dissociative self, like a part, like towards the end of my abuse, where I would kind of stop my mom from the physical abuse. And it was probably just like 1 year, but that year was when then I left the house.
Yeah.
You know, in those moments, it's not just like him, the adult, who's gone through it and processed some parts. At this point now, it's like little Alexis who needs to speak. So he's very vocal. And if you say anything that feels like opposition, he's going to speak.
So an important self in your development. Someone that managed to change things
Yeah, I mean,
and pull you out of
the
something.
only time that yeah.
Yeah. And do you have contact with that part of you?
No. I don't, what do you mean by contact?
Contact, like, can you speak to that part of you, make some
I mean, I think kinda
agreements
that's-
with that part? Can you?
I mean, I don't have the ability really, but I think I have successfully on like 1 or 2 occasions kind of like tricked that part, you know?
Do you know if Kazimar says anything in particular? Can that part calm down, or can he bring back other sides of you?
I mean, there was one time that you told me that kept switching.
Yeah.
Because he's like anger, you know? And then there's like the sad. That's the little one.
Yeah, it's almost like stages of grief. That is like, it's this anger, then it's this sadness, then this like burst of joy, then back to sad.
One of the ways that trauma operates is that there's like some kind of sense of danger that has to be put somewhere, right? And part of what happens between intimate partners is your closest person becomes the dangerous object.
Sometimes that's why this relationship is also extra scary, because I don't want to be that way first and foremost. Sometimes my brain just goes to like pulling the rug, right? Like, well, let me get out. Then you'll be safe and no one will hurt you, you know?